Welcome back, everyone. While Edward Gaming and AHQ make their final preparations for the next game, we want to head over to Twitter and see who you guys are predicting to conquer MSI. Our first response comes from @KiwiHervio, who says Fnatic will win. Other teams aren't prepared for Fnatic's aggressive play style. Also, Hooney. Our next one comes from @LongHairNoPants, who writes, SKT is definitely going to win. FLICKR, Easy Hoon, and the very often overlooked Bang are just too good. A lot of strong players on that team for sure. And finally, @EnergyDrink445 says Pawn will just crush FLICKR mid lane. It's going to be 2014. Again, those are strong words there.
Yeah, that's a very strong statement coming through there. I think Pawn definitely very good laner. He showed that against Rookie, but Wayless gave him a lot of trouble. Seems to struggle against control-style mid laners. I don't know whether it's going to be a crushing, but if anyone can do it, I'd probably give it to...
Whoa. When I was talking about mid laners at the start, man, you interrupted me for Pawn.
Well, because Pawn is very good. Pawn is very good, but to say that he's going to crush FLICKR may be considered outlandish. We'll keep hitting us up throughout the day. Remember, we are @LOL Esports, and be sure to use the hashtag @MSI2015. But now let's shift into gear for our third match, Edward Gaming versus AHQ. They are two teams that qualified for the 2014 World Championship, but both of them had their Worlds run cut short.
Yeah, EDG has a history of really kind of dominating China. They had a little bit of a rough road this time, but a lot of that is off the back of Pawn and like going back and forth with the sub. But the thing now is when they go to international competitions, they've always fallen short though. And now I think it's completely different. With their new lineup, I think they have star power in every role. They have really dominant laners and they work well as a team. The only thing here is, can they deal with a multi-threat team? They definitely seem to be able to.
Yeah, the other thing that I really want to look at quickly is how healthy is Pawn. We've seen that he didn't play the series against WE apart from the last game when he flew in on Cassidy and was kind of the Superman, rescued the show. He absolutely crushed IG. Rookie really struggled against him. And when Rookie loses lane, one of the better laning mid laners, at least in the world, in my opinion, then you know something's going wrong. And then kind of struggled once again against Wayless or Godv in the last series. I think that's more about control laners. So Pawn is a question mark for me. Someone who's not a question mark for me, though, is Deft. This guy, in my opinion, once again, is unrivaled the best AD carry in the world. And he's a straight-up upgrade of where he came from. So they had Name, very good AD carry, one of the best team-fighting AD carries, but Deft shored up his laning prowess. And couple him in with someone like Mako, put him in a lane swap meta. This guy is an absolute monster.
One of the things I don't like about EDG is the fact that they have so much star power with Pawn and Deft, that's hard for the other teammates to really stick out and somebody to look at him and say, oh, that guy's really good. But Koro, as of late, has been really stepping it up. He's been doing a lot of work on Gnar, Maokai, and Hecarim. And particularly the Gnar is the one that I want to touch upon. He plays it better than anybody else. And the argument for Gnar coming back is the fact that, well, Maokai is a very one-dimensional champion. If he falls behind, he still does the same thing. And you can only really root somebody and CC with his arcane smash. Hecarim, TP flanks, does a little bit more carry damage, but Gnar, on the other hand, is a champion that has a really high skill ceiling. And at the highest point, he is more impactful than the Hecarim and the Maokai. He's really good at this champion, and I don't think anybody in this tournament should let that champion go by, or else they'll probably lose lane and lose team fights.
Well, it sounds like a super team, but on the other side of this matchup, AHQ were not the favorites from LMS and finished in 4th place, but they had a huge performance in the LMS playoffs where they took down Hong Kong Esports, the Taipei Assassins, and the Yowie Flash Wolves.
Yeah, if you look at the other side, you have AHQ, who were mediocre in the normal split, and coming into this tournament really stepped up with the 5.5 patch, and as well how they changed up their roster. They put Albus to support, who was prior their jungler, and set in Mountain to the jungle, and I think from there on out it just worked out really well for them.
Yeah, improved their team structure. They put Green Tea into their coaching role, so that gave them a big boost. And it unlocked and this guy, he turned into the real carry of this team, stepped up absolutely huge. He plays Urgot, plays Kalista. She has a similar champion pool to Deft. But in saying that, he is facing off against Deft. So you have this massive challenge. You come out of the LMS, you show that you are a real threat, and then first match you get thrown in to a lane against Deft.
I do have to say, I fear that in this matchup, where we have some of the strongest individual players and laners in the world on the side of EDG against the players of AHQ, who do have a tendency to fall behind in CS, that this could go rather one-sided quickly.
Yeah, it certainly does have the possibility. And, this isn't the first time we've seen Westdoor versus Pawn. It happened at Worlds last year, and Westdoor, even in that stage, was struggling in lane and wasn't really able to pull it together. I think he had like a 1.58 KDA against Pawn in those games, and that's just not going to get it done. Pawn was up around the 15 mark. He was an absolute monster.
Right, so where is the solution then for AHQ? We do know that they excel in the 4-1 split push, but if they can't get out of lane and set themselves up properly for Westdoor to go into the 1v1 scenario, how do they beat EDG?
Now, Westdoor has shown that he's struggling with the CS differential in the mid lane, but that doesn't mean that he can't help his side lanes. And I think the key for them to stand a chance against EDG would be to go with a global champion. They need to go with the Karthus, the Twisted Fate, punish EDG, who may be a little bit over-aggressive in the side lanes, to teleport on them, use your Requiem, get some extra damage in there, something that's a little bit unexpected because, not that many people in China play Karthus as often as AHQ does.
Yeah.
You first.
The other thing you really have to look up in this matchup is the fact that if EDG don't get ahead early on the current patch, they will stall the game. So they'll wait until Def gets stronger. So if at any point you can grab the first couple of dragons, it opens that window where EDG really put the brakes on currently. And it's something that we're not used to seeing out of the Chinese scene. But if they get ahead, expect them to go berserk, Chinese Wrecking Ball, all that good stuff with Koro, Mako, and Clearlove just smashing people. But if they ever do fall behind, they will stall the game out, and I think that AHQ do have a shot there.
Exactly my point. I think this will be either way in the early game, fire fought with fire, and we see a lot of fighting, and AHQ as well as EDG is easily a team that goes behind your first tower, trying to zone you away and trying to go for the kills, and they are not afraid to do any risky plays if they know that they have it.
What I find very interesting, actually, is that AHQ has the fastest average first dragon kill at 9.5 minutes, and they generally do try and put a lot of pressure down there and get that 5 dragon counter started. And yet they have the longest average game time in wins at 42 minutes. So it does really, support the idea that they play to the global objective of the dragon being their major win condition.
Yeah, and that signals to me that there's going to be a lot of fights around the dragon, and EDG are really good at playing around spikes and buying for the dragon. They really like to, as you like to call it, thrift shop. They buy like every little piece of gold that they can and potion up for these types of objectives to force team fights. And like you said, if they get ahead, they're going to just continue to try and snowball it and be aggressive.
Yeah, and the other thing that you shouldn't be surprised at EDG is if they try and take the maximum. They're a very greedy team. They win a 20-minute team fight with like 2 people left on the map. They're rushing Baron. They're leaving a person, a dragon, to try and take that. They're shoving waves at the same time. So I think they are a punishable team. I just think that their execution at the moment is extremely good.
And I feel like really at this point, they are not afraid to go for an objective. Even if it's 50-50 drain because the jungle is around, they are just looking for the fight when they know that they are stronger. And they instantly go for it and say, okay, maybe it's 50-50, you maybe take the drain, but we kill your entire team afterwards, and you can be sure of that.
All right, well, that being said, I do want to get your guys' predictions on this match. Just really quickly, I have to assume EDG across the board. Yeah. Am I correct?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, okay. I needed the confirmation there, Tyrion. Well, as we throw it over to our casters for the call, Westdoor talks about facing Pawn at Worlds last year.
就是 S4 的时候跟胖他们羽场那时候在神松外，那第一场我们输得很惨，那第二场前面还打得有来有往，但是后来我们处理不小心在龙战被他滚击雪球，希望这次我们会处理得更细腻，然后讨回来。
Well, hopefully what they have in mind is still something that actually plays out a very different time, a different setting, and a different team as well. It might still be Pawn, but it's going to be changed.
I agree, and I think if Westdoor is going to be remembering things, it's going to be nightmares against Pawn, and then a little bit of positivity against EDG. You know, he was the only player on the current AHQ roster that got into that tiebreaker. The shot of making it out of groups, it's going to need to be better than that performance if he wants to make it out of groups this year.
And it does seem like AHQ is actually quite confident coming into this one. They believe they have a real shot at winning this tournament, and they are another team in a sense like Fnatic who is very underestimated coming in here and have a lot to prove, whereas EDG has more to lose than they do to prove here.
All right, we'll have to see. Let's get to it with a quick look at the starting lineups. On the blue side, it is Edward Gaming. That means it's Koro in the top lane, Clearlove in the jungle, Pawn in mid, Deft at AD carry, and Mako at support.
And of course, on the red side for this matchup, it will be AHQ with Ziv in the top lane, Mountain in the jungle, Westdoor from the mid lane, AD carry is Ann, as well as Albus in the support role. Swapped out for Green Tea, the former support player, and really that seemed to be the magic that AHQ needed. Albus bringing in that supportive champion pool and allowing him to play around Ann a little more than in the previous iteration of the roster.
We talk about honeymoon phases with rosters. This has been the best honeymoon ever. They're going to Tallahassee right here. Honestly, it's because they ran through the entire playoffs while they had this roster coming in.
Yeah.
And in the draft, specifically this game, I want to look at who drafts a stronger team fighting team. Because when AHQ made this run, it was mainly through the Dragon Control, and that begins and ends with team fights. Whereas EDG
Absolutely.
has a slightly more reserved early game than the other Chinese teams. Clearlove will gank a fair bit, but he will very rarely invade the enemy jungler, which sets up a lot of team fights. And I think both these teams are willing to throw down, which means the compositions have to play into that.
And also something you also have to highlight, talking about that run and how AHQ got to the finals, AHQ really outplayed all of the respective opponents. They had clear plans, good picks and bans, and good execution. EDG scraped through that final. They were gifted wins against LGD. You know, it was not a clean performance. For EDG, they need to be looking to improve upon those sort of decision makings and that gameplay style if they want to be successful here at the Mid-Season Invitational.
Absolutely. The swap in and out of Pawn maybe hurting them a little bit. I did say in the hype video, I don't think anything can stop them, and then Pawn gets sick. Maybe that's the thing that kind of takes the team down, right? But so far, still playing well with him, and they can still kind of have that same aspect that they had on Samsung, where Pawn kind of goes crazy in the beginning, shadows depth, but depth comes out big in the late game and takes all the kills.
I want to see what's happened to Pawn's champion pool since the LPL finals, because he had some strange picks there. He last picked a Fizz. He relies heavily on Caston. His Twisted Fate was underwhelming. Yet if I think back to when he was a Korean mid laner in Korea, his Orianna and Ziggs were both actually pretty good champions. And I want to see Orianna at some point in MSI, because I think the champion fits this meta very well. But the people that made it here aren't necessarily Orianna players of late. Right. And it would be a control mage, that or Azir or Cassiopeia, that Pawn can add to his pool to make it less of just assassins that he's been playing.
Absolutely. Taking out that phase, like you said, is one of his favorites and still kind of making people scratch their head. But whatever he can get into that lane with comfort with usually means really good things for EDG in that early game.
Yeah, and I want to touch on the Twisted Fate for a moment as well, because both of these respective mid laners played it during their playoffs, and I actually love the way AHQ played a fairly global comp. They had Rek'Sai in the jungle, and they had TP Hecarim top laner, and they just made so many ganks into Ann's lane over and over and over, and executed really, really well. The scary map pressure that type of comp offers you is available, but it has just been taken off the table.
See bans as well. Mako not getting that Annie. Don't think it's anything he's going to be seeing this tournament. We saw that happen all the way through the LPL once he started on that support.
I can't believe that AHQ banned Rek'Sai over Sejuani in this game. I know that Rek'Sai has good early games, but Clearlove's ultimates on Sejuani are ridiculously good right here. Maybe they're trading it for the Kalista pick because that's a heavily banned champion worldwide. But man, that's a terrifying thing to give up.
Very quickly focusing that Kalista for Ann. He did have a pentakill coming out of the league as they won it. So hopefully focus on him. He can bring that momentum into the game and he can go strong against Deft this game. Be interesting if those lanes even match up. But it does get that Kalista away from Deft.
Yeah, and just interesting priority. Yes, you are delaying, you know, the Kalista, but Civ is still available. A lot of these other priority AD carries, allowing a team to get both Hecarim and Sejuani on the current patch with the power that they offer, with the initiating tools, the flanking. This is League of Legends in hard mode if you're AHQ.
Deft's Jinx is still left as well if they decide to go with that type of composition. It could be very scary. We're already going to get Koro, on Clearlove for Hecarim there. It's going to be teleporting in with home guards. So.
Gnar was available, so Koro favoring the Hecarim over the Gnar, despite the fact that it wasn't banned out.
Hecarim is banned so frequently. Sometimes we talk about these Gnar players, they would be playing Hecarim if it's available. Early on, EDG comes out with really good power picks right here. And they're picking well for the team fights as well already with Alistar and Sejuani. AHQ also has their own blend of things, stuff that they have played in the past.
Yeah, and of course, Mountain still playing Jarvan, even on the current patch. One of his most played, especially during the playoffs. And Ziv, currently undefeated on Gnar. He's got a 4-0 record throughout the course of their playoffs. He's going up against Koro's Hecarim. And again, it's just, I mean, you see a mid-game team fight power from AHQ,
Yeah.
but I'm just scared of all of that front line from EDG.
Well, that Callista pickup along with the Jarvan definitely putting kind of a cancel on the Jinx if Def wanted to take it. Cannot get out of that Cataclysm Mountain likes to create. Def getting the proposal, but it looks like he's actually going to go with the Urgot, something we definitely saw him playing over in the LPL quite often, one of his main AD carries.
All right, and the main thing here is Pawn's brought out a new pick here, Cassiopeia in the mid lane.
Yeah.
It's something that he should be able to play because Pawn can show that he plays everything, but it's a break from the backline assassin-focused things that he has been playing in the mid lane. He also had to blind pick this into whatever Westdoor has. Westdoor hasn't really shown a difference from his old classic champions. Maybe we actually end up seeing a Fizz here.
Yeah, he got the option available. The bigger question I have for HQ, how do they plan on burning through all of those tanks with the Callista damage and Gnar? Callista, yes, can do well, but I don't see her getting rid of a Hecarim, a Sejuani, an Alistar, and an Urgot with his shield and his ultimate down. There is so much beefiness for EDG to run rampant against AHQ.
Perfect. Should have thought of the Karthus right here. Honestly, with these big balled-up team fights, look at the short ranges on EDG.
Right.
That is 3 melee champions and an Urgot who swaps himself into the middle of things. If Westdoor can sit in the right spot on his Karthus, or if people can get trapped inside the Cataclysm with the Karthus in there, it is the pick for the team fight dragon-focused game that we are probably going to end up seeing here.
He brought out Karthus in the 3-0 versus TPA, the 3-1 versus Yowie Flash Wolves in the finals, and now he's going to bring it out here at the Mid-Season Invitational. Doing quite well in those games. Karthus is definitely still something Westdoor likes to pick up.
Definitely. The problem is it lost to Yowie Flash Wolves in that very first game. I didn't feel like AHQ were able to find the team fights that they necessarily needed or wanted, but this time round, with the composition that EDG have, it should be a lot easier. Should being the operative word in that statement.
Yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda could be the names that a lot of people start saying after this one. This is now our first look of the final 2 teams that are at MSI. After this game, we will have seen everyone have their first go at it.
That's right.
Honestly, while EDG did pick up a lot of beef early on, AHQ has picked up a lot of stuff that can just sit in that beef and hopefully marinate a little bit and finish them off.
We'll see what can be served up for us. Once again, we'll be looking to Twitter to see how you think this game will go. Tweet hashtag EDG win or hashtag AHQ win to @LOL Esports. As usual, we'll tally those up and get the vote halfway through the game or somewhere in there. We definitely saw a lot of votes coming up for Besiktas last time. That fan base, very, very big. We'll see whose fans are standing behind them here as EDG takes on AHQ for our 3rd game of the day here at the Mid-Season Invitational.
A lot of eyes on this Karthus pick. As you said, it didn't work in the finals, it did in the previous rounds.
That's right.
And AHQ, they ran that gauntlet as it were. 4th, they beat the 3rd seed, they beat the 2nd seed, they beat the 1st seed. And I think the analyst desk also touched on the story that AHQ had an underwhelming regular season and overwhelming playoffs. EDG the opposite. Overwhelming regular and very lackluster finals. Let's see who will be channeling which performance in their opening game.
Yeah, so a 5-man invade from AHQ. They're trying to get the deep wards in, but it's a blind 5-man invade, so they have no wards on their backside, which basically means EDG can get easy wards into the jungle of AHQ for doing this. Another thing we have to note, Koro picking up the smite on Hecarim against a Gnar. If that were to be a straight-up 1v1 matchup, because the smite early on giving fewer combat summoners, the Hecarim and Koro would actually be pushed back fairly easily by Zib. So maybe we end up seeing a little bit of double jungling for EDG, or just a more reserved early laning phase from Koro.
Minions have spawned.
Well, for the time being, Koro currently sitting around that wolf camp. May be kicking that one off. Lane swap not actually being initiated just yet.
Yeah, here's the thing. Even though AHQ was able to place those deep wards, Mako and Deft had actually already ran through the lane.
Right.
So those wards didn't see anybody for AHQ. They have no way of predicting this because no one walked through the lane swap board that it was intended for the scouting.
Looks like we're going to get shared jungle camp on the Krug's top side coming out of Ziv and Mountain, but it's a 1-in-1 camp here. It's going to be Clear Love taking his own and Koro as well. We'll see how this approaches the lane if they can get there to use that level 2.
We did see that Mako was freezing that lane in the bottom. So Anne and Albus with the information and the early Grump camp. So let's see if they do get to that level 2 and what they can do against it. It's just going to be quite difficult against the very beefy Urgot Allison. I think you can see Mako and Def both sort of respecting the range of their opponents, backing off, knowing level 2's on the way.
Level 2, ridiculously important for both of these combos. If you do not respect the Kalista Thresh level 2, you will die. At this point, EDG kind of called the lane swap improperly. They probably would have done both Krugs so they could match the Gromp that AHQ did, but because they only did one Krug and then froze the lane, they had to concede that bottom lane level 2 power spike to AHQ and therefore give Anne and Albus control of the lane.
Gotta feel good for AHQ here. Those first 2 picks were Anne and Albus's Thresh and Kalista, so to get that in a nice strong lane early is going to keep the momentum up for them. Pawn now trading in the mid lane. As you can see, their stats a bit higher for Westor in that, but the kill participation from Pawn a little more grisly.
Mountain going for a gank. No flash possible on Coral. There they go.
He gets a knockup. Koro's in trouble, continuing to run away. Remember, there's no summoner, and the boomerang's not enough. Mountain and Ziv unable to get the killing blow.
If Ziv had been able to poke down Coral a little bit more, the idea of that gank was sound, but Coral had an experience edge. He was healing up just enough for the minion wave, and he survives a very bold gank there by Mountain, flashing in behind the turret.
Yeah, cloth armor definitely helping out with that one. We do see the death sentence connecting on Miko, but minion wave just under the tower, and Deft gonna have some free time to farm.
Great little play there by Koro to stay in the lane and soak up those minions, even though he got pushed out. Still higher than Ziv in that situation. Back to the mid here, 25 to 21. Pawn looking to get in the face of Westor just a little bit with those miasmas to keep him out of range.
Yeah, I still love the idea of Mountain's early game on the smiteless Hecarim. So infrequently do you see a flashless top laner punished by early ganks, because very frequently you end up lane swapping that. EDG bold enough to lane that 1v1, and Koro doesn't actually get punished for it. I just really like the idea of the gank. Because the gank burned the flash and it still wasn't successful and Koro was able to stay in lane, it's actually to huge benefit for EDG.
Oh, Clear Love picking up the Scuttle Crab in the Do-Si-Do in the river here with Mountain. Could be heading down towards the bottom lane. Doesn't look like they have too much awareness, but they're just going to keep it safe. No pressure there, as both junglers are going to be on the bottom side.
Keep an eye on those CS numbers as we do continue to progress through this very standard laning phase. The sentence goes wide. Clear Love maybe expecting a gank, hanging out just behind the wall. The threat of the lantern from Albus is very scary.
Nice
and Albus, that is caught out. They're going in for more, but they've turned.
It's going to be Mountain as well coming into this fight. Can he get over the wall? He wants to use it to actually pop somebody up, so he's waiting, and he may just let him walk out. Def very low on mana. He's the one to get grabbed. Forces the flash out. Ignite onto Def. He's chugging the potion, but it's the hit coming in from Albus, and they keep going for Clear Love, but get knocked up by Mako.
Now here comes Pawn. He's instantly exhausted. AHQ fighting a battle on 2 fronts, and looking for Pawn, but it's Mako that's in trouble. He will get turned into beefsteak as Mountain, as well as Westor combo. AHQ with the first 2 kills.
Back and forth and back again right there. AHQ with those 2 kills. Tremendous timing by Mountain coming over that wall. Specifically the split focus between EDG trying to lay a trap for the Kalista, but then the presence of mind by Albus to hold onto his lantern even while he was going to be someone getting aggressed on, and throwing it to Anne is the reason they were able to reconfigure, group up, and win that. Additionally, somehow, despite Pawn pushing in the turret all that time, Westor beat him to the fight, and that's another big turning point there.
Now the window is also open for that Karthus ultimate to come in, something AHQ, or rather, I'm sorry, EDG has to be aware of when they're fighting around it or within that window.
We'll have to see what Westor can do. Down a little bit of CS thanks to that previous roam, but the kill more than makes up for it. Even Stevens across the board as far as CS is concerned. EDG gonna have to bounce back. Mounted, no early pressure, and again, that Jarvan, there's very few players still playing Jarvan at 5.7. But it seems to work for him.
His damage is going to fall off. The early game is going to be the same as it ever was for Jarvan. In fact, maybe even a little bit easier, because if we think all the way back to when the Center Hulk patch actually happened, there was only 5 AD taken off of Warrior the patch beforehand, and the jungle camps actually started doing less damage. So the early game impact of a Jarvan before he completes his first major jungle item is actually better than it was when Jarvan was in meta.
Right.
So therefore, Mountain can still go around and make those early plays. 2 successful ganks. When he completes his Cinder Hulk, it will be a much different Jarvan than the Warrior Jarvan we used to see, who could take 60% of an 80s carry health with a combo. This is more about controlling team fights, setting up walls for Gnar to Gnar people into, or for Westar to AoE team fights. It's very heavily reliant on him actually getting ahead, so the other team doesn't get the damage to break through the Cinder Hulk Jarvan when he's in the team fights.
Well, 2 assists in that early team fight. A step in the right direction as far as AHQ and Mountain are concerned. That 1,000 gold lead playing into the favor. We're getting close to the 10-minute mark. And Westar as well as Mountain are traditionally down in CS against their opponents. Mountain down 7, Westar normally down 15.
Right.
He's only 7 at the moment with a couple minutes to go. So doing better than his regional playoffs as far as CS is concerned.
They mentioned on the analyst desk, AHQ falls behind in that early game. This time they're making up for it in kills. In the laning phase, maybe going towards EDG, but they're keeping it.
The greatest strength of AHQ as a team is their team fighting ability.
Yeah.
And the fact that Mountain, it's one of the reasons Mountain still plays Jarvan is because he tries to get them to that team fighting through some early game pressure. And they've been able to do that here because they were able to beat Clearlove to a gank. Now it becomes about this dragon.
Yeah, and again, Analyst Desk alluded to it. Across all the teams in the tournament, AHQ have the earliest first dragon time on average. In comparison, we're about to hit that time when they traditionally secure their first Drake. There's not a whole lot of vision in the area, and it's actually EDG, I feel, who have slightly better wards, but we'll see what AHQ can do with that.
And we also have to see how AHQ can deal with or use Westar's Requiem at this point in the game. Any gank or any skirmish that happens anywhere outside the mid lane can be added to by the Karthus. That's actually interesting here. Pawn pushed out the mid lane so heavily, and he might actually tilt the scales here by being a mid laner, ganking bot. Interesting roam.
Slow movement by him. It looks like he's actually called this one off, but maybe waiting for Clearlove in turn. They kind of cross paths here. Mountain also may get this ward to spot out Clearlove.
At this point, Pawn wasted so much time on the roam. He has to get back to wave management. And now it becomes more about the dragon. Remember, a Sejuani at level 6 is a terrifying thing if he can land that Glacial Prison.
Whoa! Right.
That's a massive cataclysm.
The Requiem coming down. That's the window they need to not fight in. But AHQ is going to make it happen, and EDG starts to answer very nicely. The home guard teleport coming in. Actually, it's not on the home guard, but the teleport works for Koro. Ziv's a bit too big to keep going on. They should be able to finalize this one out. Koro gets the smite. They're going to transfer this one over to Pawn. Actually, Koro gets it in the end. And a 4 for 2 in favor of EDG.
And they were unable to burst someone at the start of that gank, which is why Clearlove had the time to come up through the lane, land the ultimate, and turn that fight around. Additionally, this time Pawn beat Westar to the roam. Teleports came in at exactly the same time, but at the end of the day, the cluster favors EDG because they were the ones that didn't get bursted out early.
Instantly evening out the scales. EDG managing to balance out the goal. There's the fights again, Jeff.
So one thing, Mountain commits so hard, he uses EQ for no damage but for distance, therefore he can't get the burst. Then beautiful dash ult by Clearlove. Watch the teleports come in. The Hecarim basically jumps in as Ziv gnarred them into the wall, so the follow was a little bit late. Total chaos, and it probably would have been a 3 for 2 if not for Pawn roaming down there at the end to pick up Ziv.
That was an amazing flash by Mako. He put himself, where you say goal side to the Fate's call. That's how Deft flashed out of the Cataclysm, because Mako got popped, not Deft. Very fast thinking by Mako to flash inside the Cataclysm to save his AD carry.
Well played indeed. EDG's team fighting, giving them the advantage, in fact. As again, both junglers have moved into this Dragon Pit to clear out the vision. Several times. It's actually Clearlove that started this, but he did walk straight over an AHQ ward. He's actually going to back away, as I think he spotted Mountain as well. You can feel both teams want to get their hands on this dragon, and they're looking to see if they can find a crack in their opponent's armor to go for that objective.
Well, right now that teleport of Koro is down. It may be something very helpful if they can get number priorities on the bottom side of this map. But right now we still have quite an even dual lane in the bot, so it's not really decided.
Yeah, and that even laning phase at 12 minutes is favoring Koro. He's farming up. He's
absolutely.
ahead of Ziv. He's got kills, he's got time, and he's scaling quite well.
Everything is moving down bottom lane this match as well. ClearLove has been living down here, and it makes the teleport smite top laner almost impossible to punish at this point because we know the dragon is such a high priority. So Koro should be able to basically free farm, and it makes it really difficult for either of these bottom lanes to commit because there is so much pressure from both sides being dictated onto that bottom lane.
Yeah.
And the next person who slips up is going to forfeit the dragon.
And I feel like this is smart play from EDG because if you go back and watch AHQ's playoff run, a lot of their ganks is focused around Ann. Ann is probably the primary carry in terms of helping them win games. Westor is the star, but it's Ann that does a lot of the groundwork and the actual heavy lifting. And you constantly see Mountain going into that lane.
Yep.
You constantly see him trying. When Westor was in TF, he was going down to the lane, and you can see in ClearLove's positioning, Pawn's positioning, they're waiting for that fight just out of sight.
Hopefully it doesn't backfire for them with them going in the bottom lane so much. The kills have gone onto Westor and Ziv. Not too bad. Still going to get pressure out of them. And 3 assists to Ann and Albus. Full kill participation from Mountain as he keeps himself omnipresent in this game.
And we have to note that pink ward down in the bottom lane. It has existed for about 4 minutes there because EDG hasn't pushed through the lane far enough to clear that ward. It's another reason ClearLove keeps seeing these mini opportunities in that bottom lane because he knows that AHQ is relatively pushed. It's just a matter of actually getting ward control on that river so he can take an appropriate route for kill.
Animal Brawl in the top lane. It does not look like these guys are using wet noodles this time. They are throwing some hard punches left and right, and Ziv got a very nice Gnar bar on that one. Mega Gnar was just what he needed.
Definitely working in his favor. And I think some props to AHQ as far as their laning is concerned. Good CS numbers in their top and mid lane, and just marginally behind Def, but he does have a wave and a half, 2 waves there to farm up. So keeping himself relevant as far as that's concerned, which is also something, we mentioned how Westor and Mountain do fall behind traditionally, but they're keeping themselves up this time. I'm just worried about the scaling that EDG does have in their favor.
Yeah, this is an EDG-like game. Here we go, gank on Albus.
Thrown right into the fire. Quite a bit used there. And a save. I don't know why Albus flashed. He definitely wanted the for sure safety there, but EDG is going to have some good pressure now.
It was an Alistair flash burn, but they burn all of Thresh's health bar as well as the Fate's Call, so a bit of a dangerous dragon for AHQ to contest, but Speed trying on Deft. He wants to swap.
Oh, he's going to get the swap. Mako knocks him up. And can he get to the lantern? No, because he's knocked away from it. It's not over yet as the teleports come in for more action.
Deft cuts him down. He wants more body parts to attach to that Urgot. Mountain now onto Deft. This didn't work last time, and Mountain's actually forced to flash out. Ziv doing some work on the backside, but he was really being peeled by Mako as EDG starts to scramble and find the members of AHQ. 1 for 2.
AHQ absolutely
1 for 3, sorry.
Like moths to a... What is it, a moth killer? What do you call it? Moth to a flame. A bad idea right there because they'd already lost so much, but they're attracted to that dragon. EDG knew it. There was the speed shrine right there. A disaster for AHQ and a nice play by EDG.
AHQ always fights around dragons. It's one of the things that they consistently do. They want to go for it. They want that objective. And this time around, it cost them. That's the second big team fight in a row that EDG have just simply outclassed them.
Absolutely amazing.
I mean, look, first off, Thresh is super low. Deft uses the position reverser to get in range to kill the Thresh, which is beautiful. Then Mako pushes Ann away from the Lantern, which was going to disappear anyway since Deft was doing his job too. At this point, HQ's already committed, so they're trapped in the fight since they ended up teleporting down. One of those times where you actually have to concede first dragon because EDG was in clear position to win that with speed tride control as well as the pre-fight poke.
All that pressure from AHQ in the bottom lane, and now Deft has 2 kills after those fights. They put so much on him. They tried not to let that Urgot get going, and now he has his 2 kills. Remember, if you want your voice heard, add that hashtag to your tweets on social media as you get through. We got some good games going on, and they're only setting the bar higher here as we are now in a game 3.
Wow, Koro's Hecarim, 3-0-1. He's got his Cinderhall completed, got a Glacial Shroud picked up. He's already terrifying and tanky, and FLICKR is looking for more fight, but we did see Mountain just off the side of the screen. Everything is about this bottom lane. Everything.
Why not?
Always.
Why not? Basically, mid lane is a farm off right here between Pawn and Westor. Westor is almost always conceding turret pressure to Pawn, so unless Mountain was going to gank Pawn, there's no reason for Clear Love to go elsewhere right now. He knows Koro is free farming and will outscale at this point. And here we go. Maybe if Clear Love would have been there, the one time he's not.
Requiem window coming in. Can they make the nightmare? And they do for Deft. Mako's now going to have a tough time getting out of this, but we got a double rotation down Clear Love as well as Pawn is going to stop that fight.
This time, Mountain used the Lantern for distance and the EQ combo for the damage, which allowed him to dunk down Deft. Yeah. And they did find that window where Clear Love wasn't actually bottom lane, so they're able to get something back. This is still a game yet.
Yeah, very important for AHQ. They should secure this tower as well. Alba's playing defensive on the back line. Just trying to deny as many minions as possible. I think all of that focus on bottom lane, all of that pressure, one momentary lapse, one momentary mistake, and all of a sudden AHQ get the kills and the tower. Koro and Ziv continue to trade aggressively in this top lane.
Very, very aggressively. Even with that Skirmisher's not really able to do much against Ziv here as he keeps pressuring it in. A 3-0-1 Koro, however, we have not seen the implications of his home guard teleport in this game. Could be very big, and Requiem's catching EDG off guard. When will the Hecarim Onslaught of Shadows home guard catch AHQ off guard?
There's going to be two very powerful top laners in this game. I really want to see how hard Koro is to kill with those 3 kills, plus the Cinder Hulk early, especially when he's able to complete these next 2 items he's going to be working on. He's probably working on Frozen Heart and Spirit Visage as his next 2. Those big 3 tank items for Hecarim make him an absolute menace, which Kalista, while Kalista's a great AD carry, does have a hard time working through some hyper tanks, which is what Sejuani and Hecarim may end up becoming this game. It's that EDG late game scaling we may end up keep talking about, but they are in position to create some very tanky fights.
I'm very interested to see how and wants to handle that front line with that attack speed dagger. If he goes the traditional BT into Hurricane, it's going to take a lot of those spears to rend away EDG's tank line. Well, 20 minutes on the clock will be when Baron spawns, and that's important for EDG because they are the mid-game Baron team. That's a good gnaw backwards. Koro, even under turret shots, but still has his Onslaught of Shadows if he needed it. Not this time, though.
Healing up, not too much of a problem for him, but a little bit of a funny play coming in. Those guys are on their own island in the top lane for quite some time here, both with 3 kills, so they want to see who can punch harder right now. 30,000 gold pretty much across the board, as you say, Trevor, even Stevens, as EDG looks to even up the turrets as well.
And without Westo anywhere nearby, there's not a lot of wave clear or safe wave clear against that sort of front line. So even trade as far as towers are concerned, and EDG take a small gold lead thanks to the CS and extra kill in their back pocket.
Yeah, considering this game is going to be so teamfight focused as well, I'm a little bit surprised by Clear Love Spectre's Cal there on Sejuani. Going Aegis into Locket I think would have been much more well advised, especially considering EDG is going to be a big ball of tanks in teamfights sitting in Karthus Defile if things go well for Westor. Basically, by not going the Aegis, they put a much higher priority on getting Karthus out of fights. So, assuming they know what's up here, Mako should be headbutting Westor out of teamfights near deaths, or they should be really, really being careful not to stay around in that Karthus Defile.
A lot of pressure then on Mako to make the right call. But we've had a 21-minute laning phase with multiple repeated ganks down into the bottom lane. I think we're in for another long period of play because Dragon is only up in 30 seconds. That's Dragon number 2 at 21 minutes. And for a team like AHQ, who do traditionally put a lot of emphasis on that objective, this is not what they're used to doing. EDG, on the other hand, they're not really the 5-Dragon team.
Well, again, they get the crab right before the dragon. That's exactly when you want to take it, so they can now try and speed Shrine off to get the swap or an Alistair initiation like they did last time. The river belongs to EDG for the most part. Top lane did go down. Top laner teleport timers have been pretty much identical this entire time. AHQ has to be incredibly careful not to get poked down before the fight like they did last time, because they do not want to go down 2 dragons to 0.
The intentions of EDG were to definitely take a fast fight. You could see Koro trying to hatch his home guards on the base, but he finally left to clear this top wave and pressure that top turret once again. Maybe they can get Ziv into a bad spot on entering this fight. Mid also very close to going down here. EDG, quite a bit of options.
There's a lot of options for both teams, and neither of them actually made a committed move towards that dragon yet. I think the fact that the mid tower is so low
Yeah.
gives them the opportunity. But look at AHQ from the side. Can Albus get a death sentence? The answer will be no.
It's a lot of damage too. Again, Albus is going to be starting this next fight at very low health. Whether it's the Dragon or the mid lane, EDG now has 2 points with which to take advantages off of.
And look at the minimap. Koro is already in the mid lane. Ziv trying to make his way down, but Meganar's active. That's a smite down onto Westorm. The exhaust is replied.
They're trying to get him down. EDG is on the Dragon right now. Grabbed by Clearlove. Koro gets out on that one. Whoa! And misses and gets immediately swapped by Def to save it. He then goes into the fight. Mountain still with his ultimate up, but I think it's all disengaged from this time out for AHQ. There's the Fate's call. He's back in, but it missed. It completely missed, and AHQ actually still wants it.
It's one of those super tank fights that we keep talking about. Def running low on mana, has down in the bottom lane, and has got a kill onto Mako. But here comes the power pony. Koro's got one, Clearlove with another. Mountain is in retreat, but it's not enough. Ziv goes down, and that's an EDG whitewash.
The fight was so long, Koro got to play twice. He was the one that was initiated on. He goes back, recalls, teleports in with home guard, and is the difference maker. Again, that fight was so scattered, but it was Clearlove's Sejuani ultimate, and mainly the headiness of Koro to fight twice there.
Ziv not using Meganar. It had procced already on the way to the fight, and I definitely want to hear Crumbs' opinion on this Hecarim versus Gnar, considering how much he was discussing the top lane matches on the analyst desk. But EDG, 3,000 gold in the lead.
One more time.
Here's that fight again.
Yeah, it begins and ends with Koro. Koro burns so much here. Keep in mind, EDG is actually leveraging this mid lane pressure by taking the Dragon uncontested. Then, not only does he absorb that, he jukes around the EQ. Then, the fight just kind of breaks into chaos. Back and forth and back again. It seems like HQ always wants to continue this fight. Nice juke, nice flash there by Pawn in order to get out. And HQ feels like they have something, but they're not paying attention to Clearlove's holding of the Sejuani ultimate. Boom, onto 4, and there's a home guard teleport. The turning point, the first pick Sejuani from Clearlove because of his ability to land ultimate after ultimate in team fights. And Koro, the beast he's been all year with the home guard TP.
Holding it for so long on that Glacial Prison, the right decision by Clearlove. One of the junglers that actually a lot of people touting as the #1 jungler at this tournament. Clearlove off to a great start. Look at all the vision around Baron. EDG starting to set up that zone of control and saying, we dare you to face check us, and the support that it'll give to take down this top outer turret. It's the last one remaining for EDG to knock down before they go deeper into AHQ territory.
Already even getting the chance to mitigate against that Requiem. A Banshee's Veil now for Clearlove. It's going to keep him quite protected. Seeing a lot of core items come out on the side of EDG now. They're kind of spiking them very hard. The Frozen Heart now finished for Koro. He's got that along with the Spirit Visage, and he's already been making the plays. 5-0-1 for him on that item.
It's incredibly difficult for AHQ to kill Koro at this point in the game. They have very few tools to do so. They have the 2 items on, and Westor is still working on his major Need the Sea Large Rod item, and EDG is just looking to get picks.
And that's going to be Mountain trying to dive in. He's got a good collapse on the team, but it looks like EDG's able to assess this one just right. Westor very low, but in a great spot to defile damage. That's the knockup coming in. Can they get out? EDG, huge damage from the Requiem, and that's going to give him enough time to not really live in the fight. Actually, I am wrong. That is Ziv going down. I thought he was going to be able to take out Mako and turn to another one, but no, EDG micro in and out perfectly.
AHQ will not have a more befitting fight for Karthus than that one, and they still were not able to finish them at that point. EDG with just enough gold lead to deal with all the damage that came through there. Koro, we said they were going to have a hard time killing him. He comes out of that fight with nearly full health after all of that chaos. And that is the difference right there. Westor did everything he could. AHQ had a beautiful Gnar ultimate. Everything kind of went well for them, but EDG still comes out on top.
And keep in mind, the first 2 picks by AHQ was Callista and Thresh, who are currently 147, 246. They gave up that Hecarim. It was available for them, and they opted not into it. There's that team fight again.
Yeah, teleport comes in as soon as Mountain begins to get picked off. Mountain still gets off a Cataclysm, and Pawn actually swapped himself to the wrong side of the wall right there because he was trying to create a nice pick. Of course, he swapped it and is able to die right there. But then, honestly, look at them sitting in that defile. It ended up being not quite enough.
Well, not this time around. And as you touched on, Jat, Mako actually did knock back Westor during the course of that fight. Bluebird picked up, I believe, who was that pawn. And AHQ looking for more. They're down 5,000 gold, trying to set up a fight.
And now the important thing is Mako has also completed the Locket of the Iron Solari. He started Kindle Gem, but now he's finished it right off. So not only do they get the group manic resistance, but they will also get the shield from the active. And they are in position to bully AHQ right now. The confidence they should have after that last team fight.
So Trevor, you were saying a little hard to take down tanks. Got a little excited there at that front end burst, but that's all that AHQ has is that front end burst. There was no damage to follow up after that, and EDG was able to just walk around easy.
If Anne is dead,
right,
there is no way to finish it off. Yes, the burst from Westor in a great position worked, but you need him to clean up, and unfortunately, Callista is not a mega tank killer. Koro doesn't even care about the tower.
No need to. That guy is completely out of control right now. He has 12,000 gold, which is 1,500 more than the next closest player in the game right now. That's including his own team. He gets a local gold as well as a global gold for that next turret.
Absolutely crazy. EDG coming in with a fantastic composition. Pawn going for the Casio this game, playing it safer in the mid lane. 1-1-6. Mako gets an Alistar, plays very much like his Annie, and they can continue to fight the same way.
And I think you have to take a step back and look at EDG's performance this game. Much like we did earlier in the day with Fnatic. Contrast the team's performance versus their most recent local match. Of course, EDG did defeat LGD, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, if memory serves correctly.
Yep.
And they did not look this clean. They did not look this coordinated. The team fights are great. EDG on the right place. They even countered AHQ's favoritism and trend to gank the bottom lane because Pawn rotated multiple times. Clearlove was available for counter ganks. It's intelligent, controlled, calculated from the #1 Chinese squad.
Yeah, when we were watching that series they had against LGD again a couple days back, it seemed like none of the fights EDG took were planned. It was mainly, hey, someone was killing a pink ward, so everything ended up flying off. This time EDG is making the plays, like that flash ultimate from Pawn. And here comes Koro.
Koro come flying in, not gonna have the home guard right away since it's tagged, but they do get a nice ultimate to continue the fight. Clearlove just on the edge of Anne, but he's getting the kite back. He will eventually have to be caught out by this one. Dodges the Arctic Assault, but he wants to stay in the fight. How many arrows does he have? Clearlove rend it. Takes about half his HP on that one, and EDG's trying to figure out who they want. Very scattered, very nice to get the Karthus down outside of the fight, but they're not even afraid to fight in it.
They are not. Anne is our finally alive, but what are you going to do against those tanks? He hops over the wall.
How is he still alive?
Cheeky play.
I mean, Anne is playing his heart out right now, but there's not much he can do outside of stacking 1,000 arrows inside of Clearlove before rending because he was hitting him for an eternity, and he still couldn't even take him down. At that point, they lose 2 despite so much being burnt on Anne as he's kiting backwards. It was actually 3 dead. The fight went on for so long, Mountain ended up coming back.
If ever you needed more proof that Callista cannot kill tanks, that was it. Anne had 20, 30 spears, I felt, in Clearlove Sejuani, and it just was not enough.
Flesh wound.
Still has no Last Whisper is a critical thing right here. He has been pushed back because he could not pick up any kills in those crazy
Absolutely.
fights. With Last Whisper now, he would have a slightly better chance, but it's still going to be a critless build, which is going to diminish his ability to cut through EDG's tanks at this point, and
we draw back.
That's all I can do.
We draw back to the early game again. Even champion select Callista Thresh immediately. Focus from Mountain in the bottom lane to help at it, as well as Westor getting a few kills off Requiem. All of those were assists for Anne, not kills.
We actually had our observers go back and double check. He had 15 spears in for that range. So that's at least 15 auto attacks right there on a Clearlove, as well as the damage. No, couldn't get him.
No, he couldn't, but Koro does find Anne. Anne's in trouble, and he is down. Westor gets caught by the Glacial Prison. He's in full retreat, and EDG a running rampage of AHQ.
Ziv not even close to getting a Gnar. They all have to scatter. A triple kill coming in now for Koro. The legendary horse, 10-0-6, and Deft is going to finish off Albus just to boot on the fight. Ziv throwing out some wards to try and stop this, but it is just a grind now from EDG. They have figured out AHQ, and now they're going to be pressuring down with the Baron.
Koro running away with this game.
Absolutely.
As is EDG.
What a statement.
Carry top laners are still here, guys.
Koro has been one. He is a monster of the top lane. I mean, just looking at this one, we talked about Ann needing 15 auto attacks to not even take down Sejuani. Koro takes a swing at him and takes him below half health.
KO'd.
Another beautiful ultimate from Clear Love over the wall right here. Something about these team compositions that is very apparent when both teams are fairly tanky and heavily melee focused. The team fights will be very cluttered. So these games do end up snowballing out of control since both teams are dedicated on just team fighting. EDG was able to win those team fights early, and now they are just hammering their advantage home again and again, and not allowing AHQ a time to recover by farming or picking to equalize the team fights, and they're just forcing team fight after team fight.
Yeah, and regardless of the lead that EDG have built up now, this is one of the most definitive teams at closing a game out. Once they have that lead, they really know how to push down the final objectives. When we were in that replay, we did actually see, I believe, Def stealing away the blue buff from AHQ. EDG just pushing out the waves. They've got great vision in the top half of the map. Baron and Pard minions, there's only one inner turret there in that top lane left to knock down, and EDG instantly group up. Koro doesn't have TP yet, but he's barreling down that mid lane with those Home Guard and Trinity Force.
And their EDG is just so strong right now, able to start surplusing these items. Another Banshee's Veil, 3 Frozen Hearts. Whoever Ann's trying to hit is going to be within that aura in these balled up fights. It is going to be even harder now. Things are only weighing against AHQ. Trying to guard this last second tier turret. They are going to have to catch a big mistake off of EDG to really claw back into this one. 14,000 gold down. They're doing what they can.
And just really nice resistance stacking by everyone on EDG as well. Everyone on their team, when they're in range of the Locket, has over 100 magic resistance. More on some people, so not even a Void Staff on Westor. Even if he sits in the middle, they're done.
Goodbye, and the insta-flash from Def. AHQ now scattering. Despite that fantastic gnaw, it's not going to be enough. Koro dives the backline of the Onslaught to Shadows. Westor is down. Requiem starts to get channeled, and here's the damage on EDG.
Still, it's that end damage now, and not enough to keep them alive in the fight. It's really not even tickling EDG at this point, as they have the base to themselves. They ace AHQ.
They get a lead. They know how to hammer it home. They still have the Baron buff. That's a 5-for-1. They're pushing on the Nexus.
We know this is how EDG does it. Once they can go for Baron, they go for the win. It's almost a prerequisite to every one of their games, whether it's at 20 minutes or now at 34 minutes. 28-10. EDG come out strong with a 35-minute game over AHQ, and Def sacrifices himself.
What a fantastic win for EDG.
A lot of skirmishes.
So few risks, though, on EDG side.
Yeah, measured early game, committing to fights very well, but not over-committing to fights, which has been an Achilles heel of EDG in some situations. Mainly Clear Love just having that huge focus on the bot lane.
Yeah.
Because he knew Koro could deal with himself, and the teleports were greater for Koro than they were for Ziv. It was a battle of top laners teleporting down to join in team fights from 8 minutes on into this game. Pawn pulled out a new AoE damage champion, not an assassin, which was ideal for these grouped up team fights, but it was mainly about a Koro's aggro.
Yeah, and I also have to think, AHQ, I feel like they played better than I had thought they would against EDG, and the problem for them was their shot calling this game. Mechanically, they played well. The lanes did not necessarily go terribly against them.
Right.
It was they elected into team fights they should not have done.
We also saw a massive difference once we got into the team fight phase between the Sejuani and the Jarvan.
Yeah.
Jungle pick wise. Yes, you could trap someone in a Cataclysm, but it was nothing compared to Clear Love's
Four-man
Sejuani
ultimates.
again and again and again. Best team fighting jungler here, Clear Love, especially when he's on Sejuani. Brilliant play.
And team fighting is exactly what we got out of this game. 38 kills in 35 minutes. Exactly. These regions love to fight back and forth, and we got that. Also seeing, like you said, Pawn on Cassiopeia, a lot of players, even Fnatic, pulling out new stuff. What are you guys going to ban now? Who's going to be the best at kind of reorganizing mid-game?
There's 5 more games today. Now we see whose support staff that's with them can help the teams adapt. We've seen everybody play once. Now it becomes fixing the problems that we have demonstrated or we've witnessed on this stage.
Absolutely. And once again, we're going to now send it over to our analyst desk to get their thoughts about the match.
Thank you, gentlemen. Now, continuing on the trend of picks and bans, we saw the Karthus come out here from AHQ, and there was a discussion at the beginning of the day about Westor's champion pool that he does favor the assassins, but has recently extended his play to those control mages.
Now, we thought going into this, he wanted to help the side lanes out, and he's taken a little bit of a hit in the mid lane matchup. He didn't necessarily out CS, even in his own region. So we see the Karthus pick. You're going to focus the side lanes. They do a gank in the top lane. The reason that gank doesn't work is because Hecarim, with the smite, he's able to start Flask, do a camp, not buy potions, TP to lane, and has a cloth armor. Instead of 5 potions on the ward, he's got a cloth versus a double physical of Jarvan and Gnar. Survives the gank, gets away. Now, AHQ can't really focus that lane anymore. Their summoners are down, and he's still in lane, very healthy. So every gank from then on from AHQ is telegraphed to the bottom lane. All EDG has to do is out-rotate them, be there as well, and you saw Clearlove just sit around bottom lane, wait for a thing, and you get triple kills left, right, and center.
Yeah, I want to pick up one more time on the Karthus pick, because we have seen kind of this Karthus pick like this before, going for tier Rileys to protect the Kalista, and this is kind of the team comp that AHQ is going for. And what you actually expect was that Karthus is farming up a lot, but what we've seen before from Westor is that he's actually down in CS. In the one game he played 20 CS by 10 minutes and 50 by 20 minutes. And that's actually huge if you're a Karthus player. So I had my doubt going into it, and I don't think it paid off as well as it should have.
Yeah, I definitely think that the overall team comp didn't really do what it was supposed to do. You're supposed to kite back through, but there was just so many beefy people. They didn't care if they sat in the Karthus in the end. And we saw as soon as EDG were comfortable that they were able to win a team fight, every single time they have an opportunity, ward vision or not, they just set up for it, make sure they're in the right position. Coral in the top lane, by the way, he was equal in kills to the Gnar and just did so much more with it. Went outright tanky with that Cinderhulk. The challenging smart was just able to delete people off the map. As soon as EDG ever get a lead in these games, they're just going to look to take over.
Well, and there's an interesting thing here, Irene, in that in each of these 3 matches of the day so far, we've determined a greater and a lesser team. We've said here's the favorite, here's the underdog, but in all 3 of these games, the underdogs have come out swinging.
Yeah, and I really, really like seeing that, because the underdog are playing to their own styles. They're not being gun shy as well. You're seeing Mountain like flash EQ over a wall, level 3 to try and get a kill, to try and make something happen. 4-man gank on Faker mid. Then they get to look at these things, go back and be like, okay, that didn't work. Let's reevaluate. But they're being aggressive out the door, because if you try to be something that you're not as a team, you're not going to learn, because you're just going to look back and be like, we didn't actually play our style on the world stage, so now we don't know what to improve. So I like that they're coming out and getting the most out of this experience.
And to that end, in my opinion, this was the closest game we've seen so far, which is interesting considering that we're all coming in here probably regarding EDG as the team to beat. So, props to AHQ there for sticking with them so closely through the early parts of this game.
I think that this entire tournament is going to be closer than we had imagined at the start.
I think as well that if you look right now at the meta game, the diversity is just so huge and everything is kind of close. So if you go for a team comp, it's less punishing and less snowbally, because you usually don't go for this double assassin that like instantly deletes you, or is like fail or like super success. So I think that maybe the meta right now is playing into the favor of the lesser teams.
Well, before we get into the rest of the match, we are going to send it over to Shox, who is joined by a member of the victorious Edward Gaming.
Thank you very much, Dash. I'm joined here by Pawn, who played a fantastic Cassiopeia in that matchup. Also by Homin, who's going to be aiding for the translation here in this one. Great victory, very first game here for you guys at MSI, though. AHQ put up a good fight, had a very annoying compositions to fight against. So how did that work out for you guys?
우선 AHQ전 승리 축하드리고요. AHQ 상대 픽이 되게 이제 상당히 껄끄러웠을 것 같은데 좀 어떠셨나요?
저 상대 픽이 CC가 많긴 했어도 확정 그런 건 없어가지고 고스트를 들면은 쉽게 피할 수 있을 것 같아서 별로 신경 쓰진 않았어요.
Their picks had a lot of crowd controls, but they didn't have any like definite stuns. So I thought if I had ghosts, I would be able to dodge them. So it wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. Well, you guys seemed very calm after the victory as well. Not really celebrating. Is that because you got the eyes on the prize? How much do you want to prove that you guys are the best team in the world at this tournament?
경기 승리 직후에 되게 차분한 모습 보여줬었는데 혹시 그 이유가 우승하기 직전까지 뭐 긴장감을 안 풀려고 그러신 건가요?
일단 저는 대회 때 그렇게 긴장을 하는 편은 아니라고 생각하고 AHQ랑 일단 스크림에서 저희가 진 적이 없어가지고 이어도 딱히 그렇게 기쁘거나 하진 않았어요.
Normally I don't get too nervous during tournaments, and we never lost a game during scrims against HQ, so it wasn't that different to me.
Not that different. Now, not getting very nervous. You guys are up against SKT later here in the day, and SKT has chosen EasyHoon to go up against your team the next match. You do have historically a winning record versus FLICKR, so do you think that influenced their decision, and why do you think they want to go with EasyHoon to play versus you?
이제 오늘 나중에 SKT랑 경기가 남아 있는데요. SKT 팀에서 이제 미들라이너로 이진 선수를 기용하기로 했어요. 근데 아무래도 폰 선수가 과거에 페이커 선수 상대로 좋은 모습 보여줘서 그런 것 같은지 좀 생각을 알려주세요.
저랑은 크게 상관없는 것 같은데 일단은 이준 선수가 나와서 처음에 활약을 하고 그 다음에 페이커 선수가 나오는 식으로 좀 많이 봤던 것 같은데 그 한국 대회에서 아마도 이번에도 그렇게 하는 것 같기도 하고.
I don't think it really has anything to do about me, but I think SKT's strategy is about just having EasyHoon play first and then FLICKR come out later. So I think that's the way just do it.
All right, well, good luck in that matchup, and congratulations for the very first win here at MSI. We're going to go back over to Dash and the guys over at the desk.
Thank you, Shocks. Now, before that interview, Spawn, I had to cut you off so we could get there. I want to give you the opportunity to give your thoughts on how that match played out for EDG.
Yeah, I just think everyone was saying it was a really close game, probably the closest game yet. I don't think that game was ever in doubt. That was a very Chinese-style game. They played it exactly how you would, very, very slow, measured. They got the skirmishes that they were looking for, and as soon as those team comps were locked in, like, you cannot give Deft Urgot in this current meta. You saw how decisive he is with his ultimate. Their composition was that tanky that the longer that game went, and that is what EDG has shown on this patch that they want to do, like the more out of reach it was going. Sejuani versus Jarvan, the Hecarim versus Nara. I just think that these champions have that much more upside that the longer the game went, as soon as it hit 40 minutes, it was going to explode anyway.
During the game, Quickshot had inquired about the Hecarim-Nara matchup, and I think that a large part of it came down to the itemization and the pressure that both teams put on the top lane. After the first gank, nobody came top to actually get any kills going on there. So it was an extended laning phase with the exception of just TPing bottom and trying to help out in that I believe it was a 10-minute skirmish in the bottom side. And Nara itemized a Randuin's first item. That slows the attack speed and movement speed with the active. That doesn't really do anything to the Hecarim or the Urgot for that matter. Sejuani is not a physical damage jungler, so I thought that was a really poor itemization choice. With an extended laning phase, you can go for a more damage-oriented build, such as the Frozen Mallet, really punish the Hecarim. You know, he gets bonus attack damage from movement speed, constantly slowed, less damage, worse trading. It's also pretty good against Cassiopeia. You know, you hit her once, can force a summoner. She's not very mobile unless she hits the Q. And to prevent the Q hitting, you can go for a Banshees instead of the Spirit Visage. I personally think that the Banshees is a better choice simply because they don't really have ways of poking out the Banshee spell. Just really an Urgot E, which is an important spell to dodge in a team fight happening, or an Alistar combo, perhaps a Sejuani ultimate. So I thought the poor itemization from the top laner really caused Kuro to have a really easy time in lane, and perhaps could have punished him a little bit more.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the lane as an isolation a tad too much for how EDG are playing this game. As soon as they saw that Kalista, it was going to be a Hecarim 10 out of 10 times if it's not taken off the board. Hecarim deals with Kalista so well. If you're a Nara, it's very hard to stick on top of her. With Hecarim, you get that flank, you get the home guards in. Even if she gets landed away, you have that huge ultimate to chase her down. I think that they overcommitted on their bottom lane there. They tried to get them something that they're comfortable and proven that they can play in the past, and Koro really punished them for that with his pickup.
Yeah, I think especially Koro, I think this is where, in the end, everything narrowed down to the TP play. This is actually how EDG came out ahead, and
we have a replay, so let's pull that up and I'll let you continue on with your explanation. We're going to go 23 minutes into the game. This ends up being a 4-for-1 in favor of EDG.
Yeah, what you see here is Hecarim coming mid lane, trying to go for Westor, chunking him down about half HP, a little bit below, and then everybody is collapsing onto the Hecarim and he gets really, really low, getting this low, needed to use the ultimate. And now I want you to look out what exactly is happening here. They use not the Sejuani ultimate and they still have the TP. on the side. So Koro is like going back to base instantly. Meanwhile, they are skirmishing out the fight, and everybody gets kind of lowish. They trade summoners. Fresh re-engages here, and this is the point where EDG is saying, okay guys, we can still fight here, we can still go. Boom, TP behind them. What a beautiful ultimate, hitting 4 people, so important, and EDG just going ahead from this point out.
And this is the team that has 3 Chinese players and 2 Koreans. Those comms looked absolutely flawless there. If you just look at that team, the fact that Koro has the TP flank and that the Sejuani ultimate comes and they bait them into this power vacuum where it looks like they're in a bad position, so people are drawn into that spot. And then the flank comes out with just this huge, massive Hecarim TPing into the back, which completely changes the flow
I think
of the
that
fight.
is a really good display of a longer skirmish and how you actually bait the enemy going into, and still having the Sejuani and Hecarim TP. So I think that was really well played.
Yeah.
The big question mark for me here on the side of AHQ is the Jarvan pickup. I mean, I do understand that he is looking for some early aggression and trying to find a way to give his team some gold to work with, but especially when you do pick up the Kalista, Karthus, Gnar, things that can go decently late into the game, but then you supplement it with a Jarvan up against Sejuani, Hecarim, or Cassie, like, you're not going to win the late game, and you didn't take early enough laners to win the early game. It just doesn't seem like the composition is there.
I think the Jarvan pickup is always questionable in the current meta. The problem was that EDG went with the first pick Sejuani with the Gragas ban, so the 2 best team fighting champions right now are completely removed off the table, and they banned Twisted Fate. So if you're EDG going into this, you're thinking, how is Westor going to impact the game? You know, he's a star of the team, he wants to help the team out. Twisted Fate, globals. We talked about the Karthus, globals. Okay, if you pick Karthus, you're going for a team fighting composition. Let's get out one of the team fighting champions, pick the other, and now the jungler isn't the best team fighting champion. If that was a Gragas instead of the Jarvan, it might have been a completely different game. I doubt it, but it would have been better for the side of AHQ.
Yeah, I think Nunu was the optimal pick there. You've already gone with Kalista. You've got the Rylai's on your Karthus to help her kite back. You create another zone with that absolute zero. Nunu completely shuts down Hecarim before he gets his damage item. Once he gets the Trinity Force, he can go through it with a Sheen proc, but up until then, he kind of does struggle against the Nunu. I just think there was better things available.
Yeah, and I know that the Jack questioned the Rek'Sai ban in favor of the Sejuani being picked up. I don't know. I think maybe banning the Sejuani and forcing them to actually play that type of squishier style and then pick up the Nunu for yourself may have been optimal, because they probably would have first picked the Rek'Sai in that case instead of the Sejuani.
I think that they utilized the Sejuani wonderfully. You saw that in the last team fight, and I think if you
take it away from that.
Yeah, just take it and utilize it as you did, and you're totally fine. So.
It is a difficult situation, though, because Clearlove is really good on Rek'Sai.
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate for Nunu, but when you look into the idea that AHQ came in to really focusing the bottom side, it can be quite difficult to focus that bottom lane against the Urgot and Alistar. You know, the only really good gank path that you have on that is ganking him from behind if you're the Nunu. So a snowball, Alistar headbutts you back, gank's already over, nothing's happening. Jarvan offers a little bit more pressure, but, you know, versus a team like EDG, you're going to get out-rotated. They're going to get there faster. The TP's coming first.
All right, well, I feel like this is a game we probably could talk about forever. There's a lot to discuss. Very exciting when you see 2 early game teams come up and butt heads against each other. We are going to step away, though, while Besiktas Esports Club and Team Seoul Mid load onto the stage for our 4th game of the day. So don't go anywhere.
EDG takes on AHQ for our 3rd game of the day here at the Mid-Season Invitational. Right onto death! He's chugging the potion, but it's the hit coming in from Albus, and they keep going for Clearlove, but get knocked up by Mako! Looks like EDG's able to assess this one just right. Westor very low, but in a great spot to defile damage. Dodges the Arctic Assault, but he wants to stay in the fight. How many arrows does he have? And Clearlove rend it!
Goodbye, and the insta-flash from Def. AHQ now scattering. Despite that fantastic Gnar, it's not going to be enough.
28-10. EDG come out strong with a 35-minute game over AHQ.